Today, most people in the Western world believe that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, whether they eat it or not. As we have learned from history, popular beliefs have been proven wrong many times. In this video, I will give you some of my reasons why I strongly disagree with the notion that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Welcome, I'm Stavros Mastrogiannis, the How to Lose Weight for Life expert and the creator of the Live Your Way Thin system. The first question I would like to ask is, how do we even start to believe that breakfast is the most important meal of the day? If you look at human history, people did not eat anything first thing in the morning. Even today, if you look at healthy cultures around the world, people don't eat breakfast, or if they do, it's usually coffee or tea with something very small. I know when I lived in Greece, as kids, sometimes we ate something small in the morning, but most of the times we did not eat anything. Adults, on the other hand, never had breakfast. If you look at cultures in Africa, South America, or Asia untouched by the West, you will find that none of them eat breakfast. So how do we, in the West, in the Western world, we started believing that breakfast is the most important meal of the day? The answer is very simple. Marketing. As sad as it is, we live in a world today that with the right marketing, you can get people to believe almost anything. Is it possible that special interest groups are driving the idea that breakfast is the most important meal of the day? Well, if you look at most of the studies that support the idea of breakfast are paid by food companies that benefit from people eating breakfast. You hear about breakfast studies all the time, stating how important breakfast is to your weight and health. Here's my question. If breakfast is so vital to the human body, then why most people are not hungry in the morning? What, is their body trying to sabotage itself? I highly doubt it. For the people who are hungry in the morning, in most cases it's not actual hunger, but a habitual hunger. Let me explain what I mean. If you always eat food at a certain time, your body learns to expect food at that time. When your body expects food, the hormone ghrelin goes up. This hormone is one of its jobs is to stimulate appetite. So basically, our society has trained people to feel hungry at a certain time. It's similar to what happened to the dog in the Pavlov dog experiment. If you're not familiar with that experiment, let me give you a quick explanation. Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov during 1890 was researching the salivation of dogs in response to feeding. He discovered that dogs started to salivate as soon as they heard the person's footsteps who was coming to feed them and got curious. So he decided to try something out. First, he rang a bell in the dog's presence, and of course, nothing happened, no response in salivation. Then he would ring the bell every time the dogs were eating. After a while, every time he rang the bell, the dogs would salivate even though there was no food present. That is called a conditioned response. The point I want to make is that breakfast has become a conditioned response. We feel hungry because it's breakfast time and not because the body needs food. Nowadays you can find a study to prove almost whatever you want. Let's take a closer look at these breakfast studies. Dr. David Allison of the Nutrition Obesity Research Center at the University of Alabama and his colleagues took a closer look at breakfast studies. They found that after analyzing 92 breakfast studies published between 1994 and 2011, there is very little strong evidence to support the notion that breakfast makes any difference in losing weight. Most of the studies were observational studies. Simply put, the author suggests an association between breakfast and weight changes based on his or her observations. Still, there may have been other behaviors common among breakfast eaters that they did not take into account. Often, the bias of the researcher influences the conclusions of the research. According to Dr. David Allison and colleagues, the bottom line is that there is no hard evidence that links eating breakfast with weight loss despite all the studies out there. The registered dietitians and physicians from the Pritikin Longevity Center agrees with the University of Alabama scientists' conclusions. Hear what Dr. Jay Candy, Pritikin's nutrition research specialist, had to say about breakfast. Quote, The assertion that we must eat breakfast or that skipping breakfast promotes weight gain rests on very weak, credible data. There are unfortunately many truisms in the world of nutrition that are not true at all. Close quote. If this is not enough to convince you that breakfast might not be the most important meal of the day, let's look at breakfast from another point of view. Digestion. If you look at healthy cultures around the world, including the one I was raised in Greece, the main meal was always eaten at a time that we could rest right afterwards. In the cities and towns within Greece, people ate a big lunch but had a 3-hour lunch break, and we usually took a nap right after eating. In the villages where my mother is from, they did not have a break in the afternoon because they worked in the fields, so they had their main meal at dinner time where they could rest right after the meal. If you look at other cultures, the main meal is also eaten at a time when people could rest right afterwards. Look at animals that eat of any significance like lions, tigers, or even our domesticated dogs and cats. What do they do after eating? They sleep, or at least they rest. Think about it. How do you feel after eating a big meal? Don't you feel like taking a nap also? When you eat a big meal, and not necessarily, by the way, overeating, just eating, a big part of your energy goes towards digestion. So digestion requires a lot of energy, which this is why naturally your body wants to rest so digestion can take place properly. If you eat and don't rest afterwards, you compromise digestion. That is why for proper digestion, relaxing right after the meal is a great idea. Animals know this instinctively, and all healthy cultures around the world also seem to know. However, if you eat like a king in the morning and then go to work, that creates a problem for your digestion, especially if you have a stressful job. Stress is not suitable for digestion either. In my expert opinion, breakfast is the worst time to eat for the vast majority of adults in the Western world. I don't want to say that you should never have breakfast because there are exceptions. Most people know the cortisol hormone as a stress hormone, and we obviously associate it with stress. But did you know that cortisol levels go up in the morning naturally? Around 30 minutes after waking up, the cortisol levels start to go up for the vast majority of healthy people of all ages and gender, around 77%. The sharp increase is between 38 to 75%, and it usually reaches its peak around 8 a.m. and starts to go down after that. Now, why would cortisol levels go up in the morning? Well, cortisol gets the body ready for action. It makes sense that it goes up in the morning to help the body get ready to deal with everything it needs to do on that day. Remember, normal levels of cortisol are actually good. The problem is that when cortisol gets out of control due to chronic stress, that creates the problem. One of the many functions of cortisol is to stimulate fat breakdown by releasing fatty acids and glycerol into the bloodstream so they will be available for energy when the body needs it. Cortisol in many ways has the opposite function of insulin. Insulin helps the body store energy, and cortisol makes the energy available for the body to use. The problem is that when the cortisol negatively affects the function of insulin. So if you eat when cortisol levels are high, your body needs to release more insulin to do its job. The elevated levels of insulin over time increases your chance of developing insulin resistance, which leads to diabetes. Another function of cortisol is to inhibit digestion, which makes sense. Remember, digestion requires a lot of energy. When you're ready to take action, you want that energy to go towards the activity you're trying to take, not digesting food. Basically, when cortisol levels are elevated, it interferes with the body's ability to digest food properly. Eating breakfast in the morning when cortisol levels are elevated might not be such a good idea for digestion. The fact is, there is no reason to be eating breakfast. Your body has the ability to store energy. The reason cortisol levels go up in the morning is to make that stored energy available for the body to use. You don't need to eat breakfast to have energy during the day. Your body has taken care of that already. If all the previous information is not enough to convince you that breakfast is not the most important meal of the day, here's a quote from Marion Nestle. She is the former chair of the Department of Nutrition food studies and public health and professor of sociology in the New York University. The quote was taken from one of the articles that she wrote. So, quote, many, if not most, studies demonstrating that breakfast eaters are healthier and manage weight better than non-breakfast eaters were sponsored by Kellogg and other breakfast cereals companies whose business depends on people believing that breakfast means ready-to-eat cereal, close quote. I don't eat breakfast, but I do make exceptions. I believe in the 80-20 rule. If 80% of the time you eat right, your body will forgive you for the 20% of the time that you don't. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, hit the like button below to let me know that you enjoyed it. Comment below if you want me to cover something specific, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel by clicking the subscribe button below so you never miss a video. Also, I would greatly appreciate it if you share this video with your family and friends to help me spread the truth on how sustainable weight loss and good health can be achieved. Thank you.